A to Z with Mark Zinno, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it starts now.
Good afternoon. Welcome to A to Z here on Locked On Sports Atlanta, where today I tell you, stick to the basics. Welcome in. We are live here on a Football Friday. Appreciate you guys joining me. A lot to do. Of course, we'll have our picks for the show. We got some college football news to get to. But, of course, we'll start with the Atlanta Falcons. Just a moment, reminder to follow us on Twitter at LockedOnATL. I'm at Mark Zinno, MarkZinno. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give a thumbs up and a like to all the content there. And don't forget, we are on Roku TV. You got an Amazon Fire Stick, however you get Roku TV, download that app. Check out Locked On Sports Atlanta, all the great shows we have here on the Locked On Sports Atlanta network. All right, Falcons and Panthers tomorrow from Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And Falcons are laying 4.5 points in the game. We'll get to that before the end of the show. But, I was kind of looking at the game itself and last night and trying to figure out a game script and how this is going to go and the way the Falcons could go out and try to win this game. And I got to tell you, for as much as we've all lamented the passing game this week, and for as much as we've all said winning this way, the way they run the ball isn't sustainable, and for as much as we've all sat there and said, oh, they got to get better in the passing game, guys, guess what? They need to run the ball this week. It's that simple. Like, I don't know what to tell you. There is nothing about the Panthers that says they're going to be beaten soundly through the passing game. The Panthers' defense is like their only strong suit. It's middle of the road statistically. They're great up front, and their front four is very tough. Go ask Tom Brady because they beat him up last week when they played them. And so the way this game needs to unfold is the Falcons need to do what they do well, and that's run the football. Don't try to be something you're not. Winning games ultimately is the only measure upon which you are judged. Frank Reich, who benched former Falcon Matt Ryan earlier this week, said it very simply. As a coach, I'm judged off wins and losses. Correct. That's it. You don't get style points for throwing for 300 yards in a game and losing. You don't get pats on the back for throwing for 400 yards in a game and losing. You don't get awards for throwing for 400 yards in a game and losing. You know what you get? A loss. You get enough of those, you get fired. So, plain and simple, Arthur Smith does not need, and he knows this, guys, we've talked about this. Arthur Smith does not need to try to do something he can't and be something he's not this week. Run the rock, run it often, control the game, control the flow, and get out of there with a W. That's the most important thing. It genuinely is. Because if you want to try to throw the ball against this team and against corners like J.C. Horn and everybody else, well, guess what? Might not go so well for you. Now, all things considered, again, I'm with you. If they're only going to throw 15 times in this game, okay, and we've talked about this, if they're only going to throw 15 times, totally fine with it. Just maximize the 15 throws and make sure the ball on 12 of those 15 throws gets to Kyle Pitts and Drake London. That's it. I mean, I don't care. I don't know you guys are hung up on this. I genuinely don't care about the stats overall and what they do. I mean, and I've had to make a hard pivot, guys, in watching this team. I sat here all summer long and all preseason long and told you that if Kyle Pitts doesn't increase his target share and doesn't increase his production, then Arthur Smith is derelict as a head coach. I watched 3 games of this season and said, nope, wrong on that one. We're all wrong on it. Marcus Mariota is so limited at the position that Arthur Smith is 100% right for attacking the game the way he does. And give him some credit, guys. I don't know how many times we have to do this. Give him some credit because he wants to be balanced. He'd love to be able to run 27 times a game and pass 28. Love to. Trust me. It's not that he doesn't want to do it. He's just disciplined as hell. And the difference is between him and other coaches, the coaches who aren't as disciplined, They end up making mistakes and they end up getting beat. And oh, by the way, in case you didn't watch Thursday Night Football, what's on the line here is the simple difference of winning this game and being in sole possession of first place in the division, or losing this game and being stuck in a three-way tie and being 0-3 in the division. So what's more important to you, folks? Your precious passing yards, or first place, a division win, and having controlled the division at the midway point of the season? I think the answer should be obvious. If it's not obvious, the problem's on you. They will be fine in the passing game. They'll be able to figure this out. They'll be able to get what they need to get out of this game. But in case you haven't noticed, this is sort of like a dangerous spot for the Falcons. I know you're not really looking at it that way because everyone's sort of overlooking the Panthers. Don't. If it's one thing I've learned about covering the NFL, and in particular betting on the NFL, situationally, games can be dictated more than necessarily what a team's record is. Now, you could argue the Panthers are primed for a letdown after a big win on the road last week, and they're on back-to-back road games. But I would also tell you, and we've seen this a lot in the betting world, when the Falcons go out and are an underdog for 7 consecutive weeks, and they go 6-0 against the spread, losing their first one last week, and an underdog of 6 or more on 3 or 4 occasions of those first 7 games, and then you go out and lay points as a favorite, guess what? They don't cover. That doesn't mean the Falcons can't win, but this game's going to be tighter than what you think is the point that I'm pushing towards. So before we get to the whole entire pick segment, I'll tell you right now, I'm backing the Panthers plus 4.5. I still think the Falcons can win the game. They can win it by a field goal. They can win it by 2, but this is going to be tighter than you think. This isn't going to be a walk in the park. Unfortunately, guys, you have to acknowledge the fact that the Falcons really aren't good enough to separate from anybody in this league. They're not talented enough to do it. There are talented teams. There are more talented teams who can't separate from anybody. See the Buccaneers who played last night. They're more talented than the Falcons. Go look at the roster, especially when healthy. Not really the case. So there is a lot on the line here for this team. And I'm sure Arthur Smith, after last night, will walk into that facility today on Friday and remind his team what is on the line on Sunday and how critical of a game this is. Oh, by the way, again, when it comes to tiebreakers, you don't want to be 0-3 in a division, your first 3 division games. They need this thing badly. Badly. I mean, this is a huge game for this team, and they're going to get them 2 times in 3 weeks. And how foolish do I look? Because I was sitting here saying, well, this is the week that Desmond Ridder was going to start. Nope. Thought this would have been the perfect starting spot. I also thought the Falcons were going to be like 2-5 or 1-6. But, we were all wrong on that one. So there's that. I mean, this game speaks so much to Arthur Smith staying within himself and doing what he knows is best and what he can execute best, and that's running the football. Don't overthink it, guys. Like they said in Bull Durham, don't think. It can only hurt the ball club. And that's certainly the case for the Falcons this week. Don't overthink it. Run the ball, run it well, and beat the team in front of you. All right, an interesting statement from a college quarterback who says maybe they might be better than Georgia. Tell you that next. First, a word from our friends at BetOnline. Fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Told you the Falcons spread. We got a bunch of other games we're going to get to. You get all my spreads and information from BetOnline. I do it each week because there are new news and reviews of every league at BetOnline. NFL, college football, big weekend in college. Talked about that yesterday. Major League Baseball World Series getting underway. NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, even golf. It's all right there. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information. You get info on live in-game betting, scores, podcasts. They've got you covered. Podcasts have a ton of great information from their sports betting analysts. You can head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn about all the action that's happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay. It was a long time ago when Georgia opened up their season against Oregon and beat the ever-loving snot out of them. Now, I was somebody who thought Oregon would stay close in that game. Thought it would be a little bit tight. I was dead wrong. Georgia came out, scored a touchdown on their first 7 possessions, steamrolled Oregon, made them look like they weren't in the same class. And yeah, everybody in the world of Georgia has forgotten about Oregon, as they probably should have. Me, I didn't. And I sort of doubled down on Oregon as a good team and didn't get stuck in what I saw in week 1. Now, I got into a little bit of a debate with another colleague in the media last night because, well, you know, Bo Nix of Oregon, former Auburn quarterback, gave an interview to CBSSports.com and had some interesting quotes today, or yesterday it was. And basically, Bo Nix said, and I'm going to quote him here: "Now, if we played them, Georgia, again tomorrow, the game would be completely different, and everybody knows that." And then he was asked, "Do you believe Oregon would beat Georgia today?" Bo Nix said, "I do. From the first game of the season, a lot of teams get so much better," close quote. Now, Georgia fans obviously are going to scoff at the notion that Oregon could beat them. I would tell you that is a team, Oregon is a team that may be the most equipped to beat Georgia of any team in the country at this point in time. More so than Alabama, more so than Tennessee. That is a really a legitimate, there's an argument there to be made. Will they do it? No, probably not. But is there an argument for it? Yeah, there absolutely is. I mean, this is a team that has the 5th best rushing offense in the country, right? They're top 20 in rushing defense. They have a quarterback who, when doesn't make mistakes, has been fantastic this year. Bo Nix has been legitimately off the charts good this year. Now, you can get into this whole transitive property game if you want and go, well, you know, they only beat Washington State by 3. That's ridiculous. I mean, we're not going to sit here and do that because, again, Georgia only beat Missouri by 4. On a neutral side, I think Washington State beats Missouri. They're a better team. So we don't need to sit here and play that transitive property game because you're just going to run around in circles. What I do know here is that Oregon, their defense travels. And what has happened is that Oregon now has become the most physical team in the Pac-12. Why? 2 words: Dan Lanning. Utah used to hold that moniker as the most physical team in the Pac-12. That's how they used to beat people. Well, that's how they did beat people. But Oregon has changed. You know, when they went and smacked around UCLA last week, who is one of the best offenses in the country, and has one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the country in Dorian Thompson-Robinson. You know, they beat them up front and they beat them around, and they took a team that could run the ball really well with Zach Charbonnet and basically shut them down. Oregon is a very complete team because they're well coached. Why? Because they have a coach who, oh, by the way, learned under Kirby Smart. Like, Dan Lanning isn't stupid. Dan Lanning has the ability and understands how to build a football team that can beat everybody. I'm not sitting here telling you that Oregon would beat Georgia, but if I had to list 3 teams, the top 3 teams that I think that could beat Georgia on a neutral site field, Oregon would be one of them. Now, Alabama would be the other, would be one, you know, the second one, just simply because Nick Saban versus Kirby Smart, you know, and he's got one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and you can't deny that. So that would be another one. But I think when you talk about Georgia and who could beat them, you know, and you're going to laugh at the third team that I'm going to pick. But it's just, you know, I don't know. We've never seen Georgia play Ohio State. I was going to say Michigan, and then I just thought, okay, well, could Ohio State defensively presents some issues, if you will, right? Like, that to me is something where I think Georgia could really take advantage in the Ohio State secondary, especially when you talk about Brock Bowers and the challenges that he would present from a coverage standpoint for a team that isn't necessarily great at pass defense. So that's why I kind of, you know, look at them and go, But Ohio State probably would be one. Michigan, a coin flip game between the two of them. We'll see later on this year. But those are the type of teams. Either they're really fast and hard to cover on offense, which Ohio State is, or really physical like Michigan is. Oregon has the same sort of mantra with both of those, although they're not as fast on offense as Ohio State is. They're really physical up front. And Bama, those are a handful of teams I think that could beat Georgia. But still, Georgia is a team that has to play flawless this year. You've seen what happens when they make mistakes. Kent State hangs around. Missouri has a lead. I've said routinely all year long, the only team that can beat Georgia is Georgia. If Georgia doesn't make mistakes in a game and they don't turn the football over and they execute, like they don't go like 3 for 13 on third downs, those kind of things, they execute well, nobody's beating Georgia. But if you'd like to make a case for the handful of teams that could beat them, Oregon would absolutely be in that bunch. They're talented enough, they're well coached, and they have a quarterback that is accomplished enough. Now, you guys are all sitting here going, well, Bo Nix has never beaten Georgia, whether he's at Auburn or Oregon. You're right. He hasn't. I mean, it should go a little bit beyond the quarterback, especially in college. Not so much, in the NFL, it's different, but still. It's just interesting. Like, is Bo Nix out over his skis thinking they can beat Georgia? I wouldn't say completely. Would Georgia win again by 46? No. They're not beating Oregon by 46 the second time around. On a neutral site field, no shot. I don't even think they beat Oregon by 46 at Sanford Stadium. They're just a better team now. They're a different team. Dan Lanning wasn't prepared to handle Georgia in week one as much as he knows everything that they do. He's probably a lot more equipped to handle them now. Everybody should be better now than what they were in week one. That's kind of how a football season goes. Speaking of football, I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Falcons your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. You don't want to miss the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, before we get to my college and NFL picks for this weekend, it's time for Shovel of Wisdom.
Brace yourselves, because it's time for the Shovel of Wisdom.
Yeah, you know how we do it every day. We got to set somebody straight thing or doing something stupid. We do it right here with the Shovel of Wisdom. You can do so on my Twitter account at Zinno, MARKZINO. Just use the hashtag Shovel of Wisdom. And today my shovel goes to Xavier Howard. You guys wonder who Xavier Howard is? I know. He's an NFL quarterback, Miami Dolphins. And he got listed in a lawsuit, which is surprising, but the reason why he got listed in a lawsuit is probably never something you ever want to see listed in a lawsuit. It's not out loud. And while the woman who has filed the lawsuit is protected because she is just a Jane Doe, well, Howard is listed as a defendant in a lawsuit alleging he gave a woman incurable estimate. Man. Wow. The lawsuit states that Jane Doe and Howard met in February 2018. Howard asked her on the date, provided a copy of negative results for a recent STD test, and alleges that Howard contracted the STD the following year and failed to inform Doe but continued a relationship with her. I would say she tested positive in March of 2021, identified Howard as the only individual who could have transmitted it to her. The lawsuit alleges that Howard initially denied Jane Doe's accusation, but ultimately admitted that he had the STD. The woman is demanding trial by jury and is suing Howard for damages in excess of $30,000. Here's the thing, Xavier. Probably should have just paid her and made this whole thing not become public. But what do I know? What do I know? And again, all things considered, 30 grand is not a lot of money. Go get yours, lady. Knock yourself out. Okay. On to other vices in this world. Gambling. Sports gambling. Make sure you guys go to Bet Online. Check out the line. Let's get to the NFL first. And a couple of games that I am eyeing up very much so this weekend. Look, I told you again, I'm not being bashful about it. I'll take the Panthers in the 4.5 points. Falcons can easily win this game by field goal, and I can cash it back in the Panthers. I just don't think the Falcons are to be favored by anything other than a field goal or under against any team in this league. Nothing about the metrics says it, especially when you're talking about a Falcons team that's likely not going to have AJ Terrell. Guys, I'm 99% sure AJ Terrell's not coming in. Casey Hayward is also out. The quarterbacks starting for the Falcons are, you don't know. Because I don't know either. I couldn't even tell you their name. The guys that struggled last week and know the Panthers are not the Bengals, but that really doesn't mean anything. When you're starting non-NFL players, like guys who would barely play in the fourth quarter of the preseason game, guess what? DJ Moore should be open a lot on Sunday. This is what it is. So this is a defense that continues to give up yards, big chunks. They did it against everybody this year. Guys, they've been outgained in nearly every game this year. Falcons have. Here's their defense gives up a lot of yards. The real question is, will the Panthers turn those yards into points? That remains to be seen. Falcons do that. If they force the Panthers to kick more field goals and score touchdowns, Falcons could cover this game. But I'm not backing it until I see something different from the Falcons. So give me the Panthers plus 4.5. Situationally, laying big numbers this NFL season is just like maniacally dull. At the rate that underdogs have covered, the underdogs bigger than a touchdown, the way they've covered, it's insane to lay big numbers. That said, I'm still going to back the Dallas Cowboys this week because the Chicago Bears are on the tail end of back-to-back road games. That's always tough. Number two, they're on a short week after a road game on Monday night last week. And oh, by the way, they won a road game, and they're feeling their oats right now. This is not a good Chicago Bears team. This is the best defense in the league, possibly with the Cowboys. So they're going on the road on a short week for the best defense in the league. Guess what? Justin Fields, he's not going to have the measures of success last week. Just plain and simple. He won't do it. And furthermore, the last time the Bears won a game, when they beat San Fran and Justin Fields was sliding all over the place, guess what? They went out the following week. They got beat 27-10. They lost by 2 touchdowns. Back to the Cowboys this week, playing the 9, 9.5. Whenever you get take them. I will say there is one more game. I'll wait till Sunday to get the window on and make a wager. But I like Miami this week against Detroit. Detroit is still missing Amon-Ra St. Brown and DeAndre Swift. Absolutely back to health. Those two guys are everything to that offense, especially St. Brown, who has become Jared Goff's security blanket. And if those guys aren't playing, the Detroit offense will be as lifeless as it was against Dallas. Miami's defense isn't as good as Dallas. You know that. But they're good enough. Plus, you get another week of going through practice reps, getting everything underneath them. They left a lot of points on the board that Dolphins did against the Steelers on Sunday night. This is a much worse defense. They'll be able to put those points up and score touchdowns. 3.5, short number. Always hate playing that extra hook. But if you find a 3 out there, I'd buy on Miami immediately. I wouldn't even wait because the number numbers. But if you get a 3, go out there and back Miami. But I'll wait till Sunday just to see what the injury report looks like, who's playing and who isn't. Because as soon as I get that information, I know where things are going to go. And again, check the injury report later today, Friday. Usually when guys don't have full participation attacks on Friday, they likely don't play on Sunday. So those are 3 of the NFL games on my card this week. Over to college. I'll tell you my best bet right off the bat. Have to stay up late and look for some Pac-12 action late on Saturday night. But UCLA against Stanford. UCLA coming off a loss last week, talked about earlier in the show, they got beat up by Oregon. A lot of times you get that first loss in college, what happens, double letdown next week. I don't think this is a spot where that happens. This is the perfect bounce back opponent. Why? Because Stanford is bad. Their offense is the bottom 2 of the Pac-12, and their defense is third to last in yards per play, second to last in points allowed, second to last in rushing yards allowed. That means Zach Charbonnet, the aforementioned running back from UCLA, should have a big day. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the country, completing 75% of his passes. UCLA converts nearly 57% of their third down conversion. So this is a perfect bounce back spot. I know it seems like a lot of points at 16.5, but you're under those 2 touchdowns and a field goal. So, again, it's theoretically a key number. 2 numbers not really related to college, but still. That is one that I can look at and back UCLA to really leave Stanford. Both the SEC games look at this week. I do believe Georgia covers at 22.5. It's a big, big number, and a lot of people won't lay it. But I don't think Florida really stands a chance offensively. Just look at this. The one defense that Florida played this year that was even remotely close to Georgia's is Kentucky. Florida only scored 60. Anthony Richardson is not really very competent Power 5 SEC quarterback. He's going to struggle mightily against Georgia defense tomorrow. And I don't know if Florida scores more than 13 points. I think Georgia easily gets 40 against it. If they don't, well, then they're going to have a hard time covering unless they keep Florida up to 10 or less. But 13 is the key number for the Georgia defense. If they don't let up more than 13, they're going to be fine. And it could turn out like it did last year, 34-7, right? Like that's kind of where Georgia's defense is. And then finally, guys, guess what? Yeah, I'm going to back Kentucky this week against Tennessee. I'm telling you, Tennessee's going to get got because of that pass defense. They're going to have a game where their offense isn't as sharp, can't score as many points as it always does. And guess what? Their pass defense is a major liability. Well, if Anthony Richardson, who isn't a good quarterback, can throw for 457 against that, and Jaden Daniels of LSU, who isn't a good quarterback, can throw for 300 against that team, I think Will Levis is going to do. Like, I know Hendon Hooker is getting all the attention for Heisman consideration and everything else. Will Levis is getting attention for, I don't know, the number one overall pick and the first quarterback off the board next year. So Levis should have a big day. Kentucky will control the pace. They'll grind this thing down. The easiest way to get them to stop Tennessee from scoring is not let them touch the ball. And that's what Kentucky's really good at. One of the best time of possession teams in the country. So Mark Stoops loves playing spoiler. I don't know if they can win this thing, but I certainly think he can keep it within 12 and a half. So those are the plays for the week. And again, I want to remind you guys, make Locked On Falcons your very first listen. Why? Because Aaron Freeman does a great job of Locked On Falcons. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. The biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever. That'll do it for Football Friday here on A to Z. Appreciate you guys joining me. Back on Monday, we'll recap the entire weekend. Falcons, Georgia, college football, pro, and a whole lot more right here on A to Z. You guys have a wonderful Football Friday. Talk to you Monday. Have a great weekend. Don't take the crap.